Harry Potter's rules and setting are very undefined. It's nothing new, and I'm not the first person to criticize how the world building falls apart upon closer inspection. I think most people don't really have much beef with the way magic works in the original saga. It is left deliberately vague what magic can and can't do. It's somewhat soft magic to anyone familiar with this guy's work. But today I'm going to be talking about a very small part of the world building of the magic that I have never seen anyone complain about. Yet it feels so contrived to me that it took me out of the story the second I read it, like over 10 years ago, holy shit. And that has to do with Gamp's law of elemental transfiguration, or more specifically, the five principal exceptions to it. So first let me give a little bit of context here. In the seventh book, Harry, Ron and Hermione are on the run and can't really get proper food. The little food they get isn't really good because they're just foraging or fishing very little, and Hermione uses magic to make more of it. In this particular scene, Ron is carrying the Horcrux, which is making him more irritated than he already was, and he starts to complain by saying his mother can make good food appear out of nowhere. Hermione replies to this statement by claiming that it's impossible because magic cannot produce food. It can only transform it, move it, and so on. The exceptions to the law, other than food, are never mentioned elsewhere, and in fact this law is only ever mentioned here and as a callback at the end of the book, and never at any other point in the entire series. There is a bit of speculation online as to what the other exceptions are, such as love, life, knowledge, body parts, or money, to name a few contenders, but the only one we know of for sure is food. It is impossible for wizards to conjure food. To me, that feels a little contrived on its own, especially when you consider that there have been very clear examples of using magic to conjure wines and sauces and such in other books. Like, I get it, you need an excuse for them to not be able to just manifest a luxurious buffet out of nowhere when they're on the run, because that kind of might detract from the tension somewhat. But like, those are rules about how magic can't do anything and everything, and we're being told about them 40% through the last book? I know they were never in any situation prior to this book where they ever would have needed to make food appear out of thin air, but you could still mention it at any point in passing. It's so weird to me that we're in a world with magic that has always been shown to barely have any limits other than study, and that seemed to be done on purpose, but we're just now choosing to break that notion by putting some vague arbitrary rule, all of that just to pile up the tension so that Ron will run away? Like, some wikis will try to defend this by suggesting that sauces and wines aren't really nutritious, so it makes sense. Okay, but then where does magic draw the line? When your magic is so purposefully vague, adding such a flimsy limitation just feels so out of place. I could have almost accepted this if water was the only thing that we ever saw conjured, because it has no energetic nutrients or macronutrients in it. But then even that explanation kind of falls flat with barely more inspection. You can transfigurate some food into some other food, but somehow magic is really finicky and it will allow you to change a bird into a glass, but like creating protein and fat specifically, that's just not possible. But that's really just a nitpick at the end of the day. If the rules make sense, I can overlook the slightly contrived writing. I will still complain that it would have been much safer and less contradictory to just say that creating food out of nothing or transfigurating something into food is just really difficult, or it doesn't provide you with good nutrition, and that would just make it not worth it. I could believe that maybe you could make stuff with the taste and feel of food, but that it would not actually nourish you, and it would just vanish as soon as it entered your stomach, like it's shit in a wizard's pants before they had bathrooms at Hogwarts. But the problem is the rule itself makes no sense. Literally, the way Hermione explains it is contradictory. You can't make food out of nothing, but you can increase the quantity if you've already got some? Are you not making it out of nothing if there's already some? If you have 1 kilogram of food on your plate and you use magic to conjure another, that's making food out of nothing, Hermione. And on top of that, the whole premise of them not being able to make food just doesn't make any sense now, because theoretically, nothing is stopping you from just duplicating the same thing over and over again. Earlier this chapter, they get bread and eggs, so why are they not duplicating that into infinity? And is the range for duplication limited? Are you telling me that they can't just stand outside a bakery and duplicate some bread because there's glass in the way? Anyway, I don't really have much more to say about this. It's just kind of infuriating to see the lack of consideration for suspension of disbelief, just for the sake of a cheap bonus thing that will irritate Ron. I still like the book. It's not like this is an extreme plot point that shadows my immersion and prevents me from engaging with the plot. As I was rereading this part for the video, I just continued to read the next few pages because they were pretty engaging, despite the fact that I haven't read or watched Harry Potter in a few years at least. It's just a nitpick, but it it just keeps coming back to mind whenever I think of the Deathly Hallows. And in the end, I really think it hurts the world building when you look at it too closely. Like it's an optical illusion that was never really meant to be looked at from so close.